The defense budget is $750 billion. Profits went up last year well over 25%. When war becomes that profitable, you're going to see more of it.
Many people don't realize that in the original draft, it was actually military-industrial congressional complex. But the congressional part of it was removed because Dwight Eisenhower was very proud of the fact that he had outstanding relationship with Congress.
My problem with Eisenhower has always been that he took the reference to Congress out because he didn't want to offend anyone.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the military-industrial complex.
The B-2 bomber has a piece of it made in every single state to make sure that if you ever tried to phase that project out, you will get howls from among the most liberal members of Congress.
I believe in this military. I am urging the Senate to support this bill. $66 billion for our men and women in uniform.
Well, I just want to thank the chairman for working with me and adding $100 million to upgrade 10 additional B-1 bombers.
And that B-1 has been a great asset for the projection of power for
the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, the F-A-22 Raptor, and...
Because the military-industrial complex is not 2 links, it's 3. It's the military and the industry and Congress. For a congressman, defense spending means jobs.
Humvees are manufactured in my district in Mishawaka, Indiana by...
Losing 100 defense jobs in his district could mean 500 votes. It's not just the 100 workers, it's their spouses, it's their children. It's the representative's duty to bring home the bacon.
I am also grateful for the work that the House Armed Services Committee has done to fully fund the FA-22 program this year.
God bless our contractors.
It is our conclusion that the Lockheed Martin team is the winner of the Joint Strike Fighter program.
We have a snapshot in time after September 11th where at least 71 companies that we were able to identify are starting to get contracts to go in Afghanistan and Iraq. All of the top 10 companies had former U.S. officials who had worked in the Pentagon or other parts of the U.S. government on their boards of directors or as their top executives. It's known as the revolving door, and people cash in all the time. Public officials go to work for companies, and they make triple, quadruple, 10 times, sometimes as much money as they used to make in public service.
We know we did not have an exit strategy in the invasion of Iraq because we didn't intend to leave. We are in the process right now of building 14 permanent bases in Iraq.
There is this incredible hubris right now that we are invincible and we are the preeminent power on planet Earth. American power and American empire is actually flaunted in people's faces around the world, where we rub our shoe in their face and tell them that we're top dog. And you will work with us because you sure as hell don't want to be against us.
We're walking on thin ice. We are treading the same path taken by the first democratic regime ever created in the Western world, namely the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic inadvertently acquired an empire around the world, and they then discovered that to maintain, expand, protect this empire, they required standing armies. Standing armies is what George Washington warned us against in his farewell address, that they will destroy the structure of government that we tried to create in our Constitution to prevent the rise of an imperial presidency. The single most important article in our Constitution is the one that gives the right to go to war exclusively to the elected representatives of the people, to the Congress. Our Congress, in October of 2002, voted in both houses to give this power to a single man, including the use of nuclear weapons if he so chose, and of course less than 6 months later he did choose to exercise it in Iraq.
For too long, our culture has said, if it feels good, do it. Now America's embracing a new ethic and a new creed. Let's roll.
I think the history of the United States as a work in progress and our attempt at democracy here is a constant struggle between capitalism and democracy. And there have been ebbs and flows where democracy looks like it's winning. You rein in those powerful forces. But the fundamental reality is that most of the government's decisions today are substantially dictated by powerful corporate interests. Clearly, capitalism is winning.
على وضعها هذا وتصرفاتها هذه أمريكا تفشل وتفشل من الدول نهائيا وتصعد غير دول مكان أمريكا. وأني مو سياسي لكن تحليلي كرجل عادي هذا أمريكا تخسر لأن تصرفات أمريكا مو تصرفات مال دولة كبرى.
In my lifetime, I have seen the collapse of the Nazi, of the Imperial Japanese, of the British, French, Dutch, and Russian empires. They go down pretty easily. What I want Americans to understand today, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and we have not been vigilant since Dwight Eisenhower issued his warning to us back in 1961 about the dangers of unauthorized power in the form of the military-industrial complex.
We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
You ask, what can be done?
So what can people do?
That's the $64 question.
We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.
You can say what you want to about the military-industrial complex, but quite frankly, the buck stops with our members of Congress.
The supplemental $25 billion included in this bill for operations is not enough.
$98 million to upgrade the fleet of B-2 bombers.
Today, the government's resources are being spent so heavily in areas that don't return value for the American public. And at some point, the government policies just become so out of whack with what the country actually needs.
Our country spends more on defense than all of the other 18 members of NATO.
No one has any doubt about the need to defend the country. But if the money we spend on foreign affairs in the United States today, 93% of it is controlled by the Pentagon, 7% by the State Department. That's militarism. That's not defense of the country.
The dominant thought process has been that we're in this new terrorist world. Well, you know, it's serious, but it's nothing like the threats we faced in the past. This is not Joe Stalin. This is not Adolf Hitler.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
And insofar as people realize that they've been manipulated about the extent of the threat, then the support for those politicians, for those policies, drops.
If you can take care of another country, what about home?
And if this happens at the same time that the American public is demanding that their needs be satisfied,
Where's FEMA? Where's the mail?
that if we can build hospitals for Iraq, why can't we build them for Detroit? If we can print textbooks for the kids of Iraq, how come my kid doesn't have a textbook in his school? If that pent-up social demand hits at the same time as the threat decreases, bang, you have a transformational moment in American politics.
Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society.
I think my grandfather would be very sympathetic to our domestic situation here. Life is hectic. Life is busy. We've got 2 wage earners in families in this country, and people have their cell phones attached to their ears, and it's very hard for any of us as individuals to stand back and look at the big picture. But I dare say that our way of life is going to depend on greater public participation over time, because at the moment, a smaller and smaller handful of people are actually directing the business of this country.
Democracy, fundamentally, is not a spectator sport.
This is what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like.
People do need to question their government frequently and often, and this is the message the Founding Fathers told us. They said, you can't trust your government. You have to be a participant.
The only thing that would reinvigorate the Republic today is a renaissance of outraged citizens who are well informed, who are using the internet to get around the channeled propaganda information they're being fed every day.
At the end of the day, Eisenhower believed that the ultimate check on unwarranted influence of any special interest was an alert and knowledgeable citizenry.
The military-industrial complex is not inevitable. It's not unbeatable. You can change it. You should not lose hope. We just lost the battle to stop the last war. But this is a never-ending cycle. You have to keep fighting.